I'm Chris Carter. This is the Locked On Steelers podcast, and I'm here, not my normal confines, but we're still here to talk about how the Steelers lost that game to the Browns 24-19, what all went into it, what they need to learn from it, and how they got to bounce back from it in the long week heading up to their road game against the Cincinnati Bengals. It's the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the app you need to download today to get all your tickets to live events. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off to get your first purchase. More on them later. All right, Steelers fans, it is not a victory Friday. It is a, what do you call this? A defeat Friday, I guess is what you'd call it. But either way, the Steelers lose to the Cleveland Browns 24-19. We said all week this wasn't going to be a trap game. This is just going to be a game they were going to have to gut out. You knew it was going to be tough. You knew it was going to be weird. You knew it was going to be physical, and that's what it came down to. The snow came down. The mistakes were on both sides. Sloppy play on both sides. The Browns got the edge in the end. The Steelers not able to come up with the victory in this one on the road. And I think there's a lot of things to point to in this game. You could point to the offensive struggles yet again early on. They finally do get into the end zone in this game with what I thought was a great pass from Russell Wilson to Calvin Austin. I also think Calvin Austin had a bit of a redemption game for those who thought that he might need to be pushed out of the game plan because he dropped the pass last week, and he made a big play there. I also think that you look at how things worked out. I think Russell Wilson hung in there. I want to talk more about that later. But the thing that I think that you got to point to if you're the Steelers is this team needs to know who it is and who it wants to be in the biggest moments on third down and fourth down. Now, third down defense was spectacular for the Steelers in this game. They dominated third down. The Browns converted 1 of 10 third downs. They did what they were supposed to do there. The problem is the Browns were 4 of 4 on fourth downs. And in those plays, the Steelers just getting edged out. Now, some of those were short runs where they just got a little bit of a push forward, and it's the snow. Oftentimes that gives the advantage to the offensive team in those situations. But there were some plays where Njoku ran a good rub route to kind of give Jerry Jeudy a clean look at an out route against Joey Porter Jr. To me, it's even worse on offense when the Steelers had those chances to be the team that pushed the other team back on fourth down. And they go 1 of 3 on fourth down in the game, 2 early ones. Now, I do think it's again commendations to the defense, because on the 2 fourth down stops the Steelers gave up early, the Browns didn't get a single point from those, and then also Russell Wilson fumbling in Browns territory. The Browns I think they had to settle for a field goal there. The Steelers defense I think gave up 2 touchdown drives in this game. I could be wrong there. I'm kind of working from a kind of also didn't have the game the whole way through the entire game. Yeah, only 2 touchdowns. Also, pardon our dust. For those who might be confused why I'm sitting in this random room that you've never seen before, it's because I'm on the road. I'm actually covering Pitt basketball this weekend at the Greenbrier tournament in West Virginia. So if you follow me on Twitter and everywhere else, you'll see me covering that throughout the weekend. But I had to get here, so this is where I had to watch the game. My internet was terrible. That was there's a lot of rough things trying to follow this game. Couldn't see half the plays with all the snow, but I took some time after the game to kind of try to get feeds, get better looks at a lot of the key moments. So I made sure I knew what I was talking about when I came here. And just several times, I think that Arthur Smith got way too cute on offense and got way too cute in key moments, bringing in Justin Fields at certain points. There's certain points where I think it was the right call to mix things up. The fourth down where Justin Fields was in there and he had the chance to run. If Justin Fields just looks to his left and runs, it's a touchdown. It's not just a first down. It's a touchdown. The game goes a completely different direction. The Steelers probably win this game, but he runs to his right, just a wrong mistake in the wrong moment. But then other times where I think that that you had a fourth down and you ran with Jalen Warren in a short yardage situation, the Browns just jumped all over it. That's not. I think that one, you want Najee Harris in that situation, but it wouldn't have mattered if Najee Harris was in the situation because the Browns were all over it. They were swarming the ball in that situation. And I think this offense rather, needs to know who it wants to be in these big moments. One thing you've heard me talk about a lot all season long is they need bread and butter. They need bread and butter. And one bread and butter that we know that kind of worked down this game is starting to become more and more obvious is Russell Wilson's deep ball. And I want to get more into Russell Wilson later, so I'm not going to talk too much of it now. But, how about on 3rd and 4, where if you can get a first down, you could force the Browns to start taking their timeouts, and you might make it so that that your defense doesn't have to defend the field at the end of the game. And you put in Justin Fields, okay, cool. But you put in Justin Fields and then throw a go ball to George Pickens. Now, hey, George Pickens, you want the go balls to go to him. But I just think that if you're doing that, wouldn't you want Russell Wilson to be in the game there? Because if Russell Wilson's in, you're probably going to still get the chance at a go ball to George Pickens, or you might get them double teaming him and open up Pat Freiermuth, who I thought also was having a good game when they targeted. He finished 4 catches, 59 yards. But I think in these moments, the Steelers, this is kind of the double-edged sword of having such a balanced team with all these different talents you want to target. Darnell Washington's good. Najee Harris is good. Jalen Warren's good. George Pickens is good. They still aren't using Mike Williams, and I don't understand why not. So that's one thing there. But you have all these different places you want to go with the football, and sometimes you try to do too much to get too fancy by spreading the ball all around when you need to just settle on, hey, we can get a mismatch right here. Like, for example, on that 3rd and 4, I don't know why you don't put Russell Wilson back in there and let him and put Pat Freiermuth split out wide and let him run a slant to the middle part of the field while you're sending George Pickens deep behind it. Because here's what the Browns will have to do: they'll either have to cover George Pickens deep with one-on-one with Russell Wilson throwing to him, and that's where Russell Wilson was eating a lot in this game, or they're going to have probably Greg Newsome or one of the guys that have been trying to guard Pat Freiermuth all game, and he wouldn't be, and they had no success in stopping him anytime Russell Wilson threw him the ball. And to me, those options made more sense than what the Steelers went for it there. And look, I'm also one to say, like, hey, we can all have hindsight is 2020. We can all say, I would have called this or I would have called that. And I do think this was not a good game for Arthur Smith. But I also, one thing I think people need to acknowledge all the times is that there's a ton of calls, there's a ton of reason that things go wrong in the call, and sometimes it's not as easy as people saying, oh, well, I would have did something different there as the result. I do think the Steelers should have came out with a better plan of attack on those key money downs. I do think that in general that is the way, and I think they can. But that's why I don't think this was a trap game. They came out with different plans. They came out trying to execute things. They made mistakes. They came out early, had some procedural penalties when they were switching between the cadences of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields on some of those earlier drives. And Mike Tomlin even said after the game, he's like, we took too long to settle in on a lot of those things. And just when you're being a little off here and there, adjusting to things like that, that's what allows, for miscues and being a little bit late or not as focused on plays where you give up 3 sacks in the first half to Myles Garrett. Now, you shut Myles Garrett out in the second half, and that's good and all. But in divisional games and road divisional games and short weeks, you're going to need to win every chance that you can get. And that's where I think the Steelers came up short in this one, is that when they needed to win those key moments, when they needed to win those key spots, they weren't sure who they wanted to be. They were trying to beat Justin Fields in one place. They were trying to throw deep with Justin Fields in another place. They were trying to run into the teeth of the defense, but not committing to that, or they put in Justin Fields and maybe you had the right call there and he just ran the wrong direction. Too many of those moments played out in this game, and the defense doesn't escape culpability either, because they had some key moments, on 4th down where they weren't coming out on top. But in all of those moments, maybe if one of those breaks the Steelers' way in this game, maybe they win this game. Maybe if they get to 3rd and 4, maybe they win this game. If they get one of those stops later in the game, maybe they pull this out in the end. And you were thinking like, wow, how did they pull this one out? I think there's reason to believe that they can still be a very good team this year. I think that they are still a very good team. They dropped the game, and again, I said all week long, this isn't a trap game. These are normally the tougher games for the Steelers coming on, short weeks, coming off of playing the Ravens, playing the Browns all week long. The Steelers knew that this was going to be a tough game, and it was a tough game. They just came up short. I think that there's sometimes people need to accept that. And I know that people say, "Oh, this was the classic Tomlin game. He always loses this game. He always loses to teams with losing records." And I saw someone tweet out after the game, that's why he's never going to win NFL Coach of the Year. That's why he should never win NFL Coach of the Year. And I pointed out 3 of the last 4 NFL Coaches of the Year have significantly worse records against team with losing records than Mike Tomlin does. So, Brian Daboll, Kevin Stefanski among them. So I don't think that that's as big of a thing as people make it out to be. All teams lose to teams with losing records. All teams have bad games and bad moments. It happens at times. This was unfortunate for the Steelers. What will determine whether or not they are a good team is how they rebound from this moment, not in what they did in this moment. And I think that's where the Steelers have to look moving forward. That's why I want to talk more about how they can move forward, especially on offense, because despite the Steelers defense giving up that late touchdown, I do think the Steelers offense is still the key to this team being a better football team down the stretch and winning more of these games, holding on to first place in the AFC North, and maybe getting a home game in the playoffs, and maybe still getting a chance to get a really favorable situation there in the postseason. We'll talk more about that and how that involves Russell Wilson and what I think they should do with Russell Wilson moving forward next year on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is also brought to you by BetterHelp Therapy Online. Thanksgiving is just a week away, actually, and I've had a lot of people to be thankful for in my life, including my fiance, who puts up with me having to record my show at all ridiculous hours some nights. Fortunately, she doesn't have to put up with me tonight because I'm not home, so good for her. But this month is all about gratitude. And all along with the person that I shouted out, there's another person that we don't get to thinking of. And sometimes that's ourselves. We need to remind ourselves to thank people in our life, but we also need to thank ourselves. And that's something that therapy can help you realize, because there's so many things that you do for yourself that you need to acknowledge to make sure that you're taking on your day-to-day life and finding the best version of yourself. Therapy is a place that can help you sort all those things out of what to be thankful for in your life and what to realize, hey, these are the things that I can work on. These are the things that I can improve. So try therapy today. If you want to try therapy, BetterHelp Therapy is a great place to go. BetterHelp knows life can be busy and stressful. It's designed to be suitable for your schedule. All you have to do for BetterHelp Therapy online is just fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time with no additional charge when you're trying to find who's the best person to work with you. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. We're also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the app you download today to get all your tickets to live events in Pittsburgh. It's getting to be winter, and there's plenty of live events going on around the holiday season. So get your tickets to those live events, including maybe some of those Steelers games when they're coming back to town. Also, if you want to see me at some of those Pitt basketball games at the Peterson Event Center that I cover, you can get all those tickets and so much more, whether it's sports, theater, comedy, whatever you want to get to, concerts. You can get all those on Game Time. Game Time also has parts of their app that you can download to your phone right now, like Game Time Picks, where it helps you find the best tickets for the best prices, whether it's club seats at the big game, floor seats at the big concert, or just the right price for what you're looking for to pay to see your next big event. Be sure to get your tickets for your next big event at Game Time. Plus, Game Time has the best price guarantee, where if you find a better price somewhere else or a lower price somewhere else in the same section row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference of those prices. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase, or go to their website, gametime.co. Terms and conditions apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here recapping and kind of taking steps forward from the Steelers' Thursday night loss to the Browns. Again, the Steelers 8-3 still control their own destiny to win the division. But this is now the divisional part of the schedule. They get a little bit of a short bye week with the Thursday night football game before they face the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati next week. But I think there's, I was dipping back in to the coaching thing there about how they tried to get cute in certain moments. I think that's where Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith need to be able to lean into their players. And I get that there's times to be smart. I get there's times to catch people off guard, but there's also times to lean on things that are working. And I thought one thing that was working in this game was Russell Wilson when he was throwing it deep. This guy was striking into the Browns defense. He was doing so without fear, without abandon, and the Browns were hitting him a lot. Like I'm just looking at things here again. Also, pardon my dust for the timing of the show, so there might be a couple ads that are a little off here and there and things here. We're on the road. We're trying to work. I'm trying to work with like spotty internet here, so I do apologize for production quality if it's a little lower this time around. But looking at this game and seeing all the times. I'm looking at sacks here on the stat sheet. Russell Wilson got sacked 4 times. He got quarterback hits officially registered 7, 8, 9 quarterback hits, and yet Russell Wilson was out there slinging it, reading the defense, giving his players chances. That touchdown pass to Calvin Austin, threw it right before he was going to take a hit. Russell Wilson to me showed when everything's going wrong, when everything is just not going your way, he's still locked in trying to make things happen, even when it's tough to make those things happen. And I think that's something the Steelers need to lean into. Now, I'm not saying that they should just always chuck it with Russell Wilson, but I think that like when that third, I thought it was fine early on to bring in Justin Fields at the times because it gave you a spark, it gave you a different look, and it forced the Browns to honor a few different things. But on key money downs, like a 3rd and 4 at the end of the game, and you're thinking up like, hey, we might get a one-on-one in this situation. That's where I do think you want to lean into Russell Wilson and also lean into concepts that give him opportunities to capitalize on mismatches that you've been getting throughout the game. And I thought one thing that they got was, like I said earlier, Pat Freiermuth, whenever Greg Newsome was having to guard him or whoever was guarding him, whoever they put on Pat Freiermuth couldn't stop him in this game. And I thought that was an area they could have leaned into more. And it's something that the Steelers, I thought, would have done more over throughout the course of this year. It was include their tight ends. Now, the offense has clicked in several ways this year. I think that, you saw Calvin Austin was included a little bit more in this game. That was good. But I think that they need to lean into these types of things to develop more consistency. And again, that bread and butter that we've been talking about, because if I'm a team and I'm just going up against the Steelers right now, I don't feel like there's one part of their offense outside of, throwing the deep ball right now with Russ that I am too scared of. And so now if you put yourself in the situation with the Steelers, like, okay, if teams are taking away the deep ball, how are we going to move the ball down the field? And I think they can move the ball. They have moved the ball when teams have tried to do that, because that's where they need to be able to run the ball. That's where they need to be able to hit their tight ends in spaces. And I think that Darnell Washington, Pat Freiermuth did a good job at this game. Connor Hayward, another story. That brother had a lot of penalties. I thought that he messed some things up. He did have a good block though on a one play. I forget which exact play that was, but there was one play I was like, oh, he did a really good lead. It was the Justin Fields long run. That's what it was. But I think that that's where the coaching can come into play here. Is they have to be able to get this offense to have that identity, to lean into the things that they can be good at in these bigger moments, because there will come a time later this year where things are off schedule. It's a weird game. Probably not. They don't have any Thursday night games left this year, so that's a good thing for them. But there will be times like this where it's just like, hey, things haven't broke your way in this game. This is a weird game, but you got to find a way to gut it out. And they need to have things ready to go-to plays that they're ready to attack with, that are going to give them opportunities. And that's where I do think that Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith need to be tighter about in this offense. And again, the defense isn't free of culpability here, but I really thought that there were chances for this offense to back the defense up, because the defense, I thought the defense really stood up for the Steelers, especially early in this game when this could have really gotten out of hand. Early on, the Steelers started with the ball, missed field goal, and short field given to the Browns resulted in a punt. Then a turnover on downs. The Browns get the ball at their 40. Punt, 3 and out, nothing there. Now they do give up a touchdown, but then Russell Wilson fumbles, giving the Browns another short field that results in a field goal. So you had 3 short fields in the first half and 3 points from them. And I think that was a big part. Then the Steelers come out and force 3 turnovers in the second half on defense. To me, that was part of what they needed. Now they do go up 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. that's unfortunate. That's not what you want to deliver there. But I'm not harping too much on the defense for this one. I thought there were a lot of weird things that happened in this game. I still think that there were identity moments where the offense comes in and just does a little bit more. Defense doesn't have to go back out there at the end of the game after they've forced 3 turnovers in the second half, after they've defended short field after short field after short field all game. They have to be able to capitalize there. And I think part of it's the game planning, and that falls on both the head coach and the offensive coordinator. And I think that goes into leaning into what you're doing well. And right now, I think Russell Wilson deserves a little bit more credit than what people might be willing to give him, because I think that he was dealing with a lot of pressure. And I'm not talking about pressure of the moment. I'm talking about, pass rushing pressure. And that's something that the Steelers, I think, will try to, clean up moving forward. And I do think that they did clean things up. They did make some adjustments. Mike Tomlin said at halftime, when asked about schematic adjustments to stop Myles Garrett, and he kind of said, well, that's not what it's about. We have to just do what we're supposed to do, or something to that effect. He kind of dismissed the idea that it would take schematic adjustments. But in dismissing that, I thought that I was like, yeah, that's a little weird, but that might also just be Mike Tomlin speak for we have something, but I'm not going to acknowledge that we're changing things up. And then when you look at the playlist for the second half, Myles Garrett was nowhere to be found. I think that Russell Wilson wasn't sacked in the second half. If he wasn't, I think the one time he was sacked, he ran out of bounds because it was just kind of a broken play, and he was trying to find a guy, and then it didn't work out. But they did switch things up there. But still, I think the switching things up, it wasn't the problem for this game. It was having something to lean on in the big moments. And if they can find that in this offense, if they can find something consistently that they can go to, whether it's route concepts, whether it's a run of 2 to 4 plays that can play off of each other well to create results in those big moments, maybe that can really help the Steelers. But if they don't find that, they could be right back in this spot later this season and also come up short again. And that's when it will become more costly. Right now, losing an 8-2, falling to 8-3, not too costly. Does it stink because you had a chance to really put the pressure on the Ravens for their night game against the Chargers? Absolutely. Was this a game that you didn't want to lose? Absolutely. But if they learn from this game and take it forward, and they apply it to their future games, and they finish strong this year, then people are going to look back at this game as a teachable moment. But that's what Mike Tomlin has to do. That's what this team has to do. They have to make this game a teachable moment, not one that lingers and becomes a problem for a longer time moving forward. We'll get more into what they need to do down the stretch as they get ready to face some of these teams. Next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter here on after Thursday Night Football. We got one more segment. We're going to break some things down and get you ready for the weekend before we get to our grades when we come back on Monday. But all that will be here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Stick with us. We'll be right back. We're also brought to you by Bilt Rewards. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? It's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Bilt Rewards comes in. Bilt is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent every month. Pay your rent and watch the Bilt points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points towards a flight or a hotel stay with 500 plus airlines available and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them towards a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle, whatever that is. Pay rent hassle-free through the Bilt Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Bilt points have been consistently ranked as the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use our URL so that they know that we sent you. JoinBILT.com/LockedOnNFL to start earning points with your rent payments today. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our show here after Thursday Night Football. Again, we apologize for the dust here as far as being on the road and it not being my normal studio setup. Sound might not be as great and visuals might not be popping up as much as we want. We also won't have post-game quotes or anything like that. But I think, again, this is still a team that has played a very, very, very good football this season. This was a rough spot that a lot of teams don't come up in. Most teams that go on the road against divisional opponents on Thursday Night Football lose. That's just that is a fact. But I do think that there are things to learn from this game that they have to clean up moving forward. I think that there are times where you're seeing certain players get frustrated with certain things and not responding well. George Pickens, I thought, was one of them. This isn't to say George Pickens did anything bad in this game, because actually I thought George Pickens was mauled at times. There was a touchdown ball Russell Wilson threw where George Pickens broke and was about to break on it and make a big catch down the field, and the cornerback not only arm barred him but then put his foot out and tripped him, and there was no call, and it was just I thought that was one of the worst calls of the night. And then there were other times where he was just shoved to the ground while the ball was in the air, or just held the whole way down the field, and nothing came of it. And George Pickens, I think, let that get to his head. And that's something that I think he's been a lot better at this year, is he's not allowed opponents to get in his head as much and get frustrated and miss opportunities there. So I think that's something that you get better there, but I think that's something you got to do there. I think, on the flip side, Joey Porter Jr., there were times where he just got beat by Jerry Jeudy, but there was also times that, I thought that he got pushed off in the face, like literally it was like hands to the face, right in the helmet. And I think they let those moments frustrate them and lose focus a little bit, and they could have fought through other moments later in the game. Those are the things that I think the Steelers need to get back on, need to improve upon, and get back to winning now. If they can do that, and I think if they can shore up those types of moments, I think this team will be able to keep their winning ways this season. I mean, you look at how they've played in general this season; they're 8-3. Even if the Ravens win this week against the Chargers, which is not a given. It's Monday Night Football in Los Angeles. The Steelers would still hold a half game over them in the AFC North, and they still would control their own destiny. And that's where I think the Steelers can still say, like, hey, we can jump back on it. But now this was one of the Ohio teams that you were supposed to beat, and you didn't beat them. And now you're going to be like, okay, you can't drop too many more of those games, because you still got the Ravens again in Baltimore. You still got the Eagles in Philadelphia. I don't care what anybody says about the Eagles and how inconsistent they are. The Steelers don't win in Philadelphia. It's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. And then, of course, you still got the Kansas City Chiefs, the Super Bowl champs, the unbeatable team that that has everything going for them right now. You need to be able to take care of these moments. And the next two games, you get the Ohio teams, including the Browns, yet again, both of those being 1:00 Sunday games. They got to come out and they got to be prepared. They got to be prepared to take things away. I also think on defense, they need to be prepared to bring different things in the pass rush, because I think what you're starting to see now is more and more teams, they are anticipating TJ Watt coming from the side that he's coming from. They're double, triple teaming him. They're limiting him from being a big factor in games. They're also, you can point out that they're holding him. I think that they are, but it's clear it's not going to get called. You need to adjust to that, and I think that might require some different blitz looks, some different pass rush opportunities, some switching things around. I think that Alex Highsmith, if he can get healthy again, that might help. Because right before he was hurt, they were starting to switch him and TJ Watt and where they lined up a little bit, and then he gets hurt and they can't get back to that. And now they got to kind of just focus on, hey, Preston Smith, get worked in. Nick Herbig, get worked in. Nick Herbig, forced fumble, big play in this game. Was made a big play there. I think that they certainly have those types of moments where there's definitely a lot of good things to lean into for this team. But, again, you go down this stretch, you got 2 games against the Bengals. You got to come up with big in those games. You got another game against the Browns at home. You cannot have another game where this gets into a mud fight where a team that you're clearly better than doesn't, is in a rock fight with you at the end. Those are the games the Steelers used to drag teams down to and win a lot over the past few years. They need to be able to do that, and I think that's going to take leaning into their strengths a bit more, letting setting up Russell Wilson with more opportunities to be the deep ball thrower that he has been. Because again, I think that was the biggest thing that was going for the Steelers in this game, and it was crazy because he was doing it in the snow. There was that one deep ball he threw to Van Jefferson. I was like, why are you throwing it to Van Jefferson? That's why you throwing it to Van Jefferson, because he's open. And I think that there's ways to work that into this offense and make it more organically flow with the other things that you do well, like targeting Pat Freiermuth over the middle, letting him work in space, getting him one-on-one. That's where Arthur Smith needs to be focused on these next few weeks. And again, still, I'm not saying don't use Justin Fields. Do use Justin Fields in certain packages, but when game is on the line, I think you need to put Russell Wilson in the game. Change up pace. Having your change of pace quarterback, that's totally fine. I think that's something you can absolutely do and catch teams off guard and get big plays from even. But I think on big moments, you want the quarterback that is your number one quarterback in the game with the chance to win the game for you, hold the game for you, ice the game for you, whatever it is. I think that those are the things the Steelers need to lean into. But again, they have the makings to be a good and even great. They are a good football team right now. They have the makings to be a great football team. They have all the things that they need on this team. They have a passing game. They have a run game. They have a pass rush. I think they need to mix it up a little bit more. They have coverage that's been very good this season. I think that they had some lax moments in this game, but again, I think that there's a lot of things that they did wrong in this game that they normally do right and they could do right moving forward. We'll keep talking more about this. I'll be able to look at the All 22 this weekend while I'm out here. Hopefully, my internet can download the All 22 and we can just watch it normally, because that might be a problem. But if when we're able to do that, I'll be able to take a closer look, give you guys more stronger reviews on what happened. We'll do our stars and skulls grades on Monday instead of Tuesday this week, hopefully, if all that works out the way I anticipate it to. If not, we'll still do a little bit of film review on Monday and then maybe do our stars and skulls on Tuesday. But either way, there's a lot to break down from this game and still a lot to break down on this team. We will keep doing that here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every Monday through Friday, breaking down your Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to be back here Monday. I'll probably record my episode Sunday while I'm still here, and then put it out Monday morning so that everyone can see it, and then we can get rolling with the rest of the week. But then I'll be back in Pittsburgh, throughout the week for this next week here as they get ready to take on the Bengals and rebound from this game. We'll get over all that here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Stay hang in there, Steelers fans. I think that there's more good days coming this year.